Hey, this is Steven with Brady Nursery, and today we're going to talk about the proper watering of trees. So there's a lot of different factors to take into consideration when you're wondering on how much and how often you need to water, and the biggest thing is your soil type. So within Wichita and Kansas, there's a broad range of different soils, from heavy, dense clay to sand that hardly holds any water. So if you lean more towards the clay type of soil, your soil is going to retain a lot more water. And then you got sand on the other end of the spectrum that's not going to hold as much. So knowing your soil type is going to help you in determining how frequently you should water. Once you get to the heat of the summer around here, newly planted trees, especially container trees, require a lot of supplemental watering, and you can't count on your sprinkler system for your yard to adequately water a bigger tree. A lot of times your sprinkler just doesn't soak in deep enough, and it requires supplemental watering. Typically when it's hot, once a week is sufficient in watering your trees, but you really need to go and monitor. And I like to pull back the mulch, and you can first see the top of the ground. If the top is dry, usually it needs water. You can also use a soil probe like this one, or like a Phillips head screwdriver, and go towards the outside of the root ball and poke in the ground. If it goes in real easy, there's moisture in the ground. If it's really hard to get in there, you probably need to water. It's kind of like checking a cake. When this comes out and there's mud on it, there's moisture in the ground and you don't need to water. A lot of people think I need to water my tree every day, and overwatering is one of the biggest causes of death in newly planted trees. Another way to determine if you should water or if you're watering too much is just the overall look of the tree. So a lot of trees, the leaves will wilt when they're dry. So if you notice your tree's leaves are hanging a little more, that's usually an indication you need to water. But I do like to double check that the ground is dry before I do that, because certain trees that are overwatered will also wilt. Overwatering also shows itself on the leaves. Typically the leaves will start to turn black from the tips back, and that's a sign of overwatering. So you need to keep that in consideration. Wilting doesn't always mean the soil's dry. Then you also really need to think about what species your tree is. So you have like red buds and pistache on one end of the spectrum, and then you have willows, river birch, bald cypress on the other edge of the spectrum. So red buds and pistache love it to be dry, like the soil to dry out some. The other trees like it wet, and then a lot of other trees kind of fall in that spectrum. So knowing your tree, knowing your species, what they like, can also help you determining your watering needs. So we get this question a lot: how should I go about watering my trees? And on watering trees, you need a slow, deep soak. So the first thing to do is you need to have somewhat of a basin around your tree. Typically, this is done at the time of planting, and you use some of that excess dirt to create somewhat of a moat around your tree without building that soil level up on your trunk. That way you can take your hose out to it and turn it on real slow, and let it run for 45 minutes or an hour at a very slow pace, and it will get a good deep soak. Another great product is this ring here, and it's a soaker hose in a ring, and that really helps to evenly distribute water around that root ball. And if you're in an area that you maybe can't take your hose out to, or you have 20 trees to water, there's these tree watering bags. This is a DeWitt one, and this holds a decent amount of water, and it slowly drips out of the emitters at the bottom, and this will get you a really good deep watering on your trees. So there's a lot of different factors to take into consideration when successfully watering a tree. And a lot of you will probably have questions, so feel free to contact us via our Facebook, call us, or come into the store and ask us any questions, or bring us pictures of plants you think you might be having issues with.